gentlemen, and welcome to the finale of the 2025 AROC Racing League's Touring Car Championship for the final round here in the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. We are at this evening for one final go here in our Julieta WTCR Touring Cars. I can't believe we're already at the season finale for this year's running of again, I just can't believe how quickly it has flown by. We're currently 8 minutes in, well, more than 8 minutes in this session. We're 8 minutes to go in this session. Here, currently on board with Steve Knight at 1 minute 55.0, his fastest time in qualifying, and this qualifying session being led by Mr. Matt Daly, a 150.491. He leads this session just like he leads the championship, although Greg Young putting on an immense charge to close up that gap in qualifying with a time of 150.767. Pretty close running then for Greg Young and Matt Daly as we head out into the final stages of this qualifying session. Now Greg Young putting in the personal best sectors. It was 150.6, so getting a little bit closer still as we head on to this next lap with Greg Young. Andrew Whitehead just behind there, followed by Alan Matthews, Willie Gliss and Steve Knight. Yes, Matt Daly leading the charge, as I said, at the moment, just as he is in that championship. The championship lead currently 42 points, which means on paper, theoretically, very much still all to play for. He leads ahead of David Chelly. The only issue is David Chelly currently not here this evening. Not sure if we will see him later on to the session. We're certainly hoping so we can have a championship fight. But if not, it will be Matt Daly who's crowned the champion for this season's running, and what a well-deserved championship that would be. Kept the nose clean and has just enjoyed some fantastic running, some fantastic battles with David, of course, as well. But yeah, as I say, those two really putting on a strong charge in this championship. Matt Daly 542 points, David Chelly with 500 on the nose there. Pretty clear of everyone else in this session, I must say. Everyone else in the mid 200s and further down than that. So a remarkable gap in the championship lead to our two front runners, one of which are currently leading this session. We see Matt Daly heading up through towards the end of the middle sector of this lap. Now it was purple through that first sector, so he'll be looking to push on towards the low 150s. I doubt a 149 will be on the card in this session, but I've seen crazier things in the past, and if there is anyone who can do it, it will be Matt Daly as he continues to push on at just about 1/10 a second faster than Greg Young at the moment, but we'll see how that gap changes as we go further into this session. I'm very pleased, I must say, that my voice has recovered, because over the weekend I was enjoying a 24-hour stint of commentary. I wasn't quite doing the full 24 hours, I must say, but the British University's 24-hour event was on over the weekend, and I was camping in the back of my car. Not the Mito, unfortunately, but camping in the car and jumping in the commentary box for 24 hours worth of racing. And I must say that the celebrations were arguably more tiring than the race itself, because my home university won, and it was great to be there with the team for their inaugural 24-hour win, and covered in champagne. There's pictures of this on the podium, and yeah, the celebrations only got more interesting outside of that. And Matt Daly certainly will be celebrating as we head into the final few minutes of this session, because he does go faster with a personal best sector 3. That was a purple sector one, actually losing time in the middle of the sector, so potentially we could see a couple more 10s being found here or there, as it's a 150.3 for Matt Daly, starting to build a gap to Greg Young now, but Greg Young still looking strong there with the 150.6. He's got a few 10s down to Andrew Whitehead in this session. Andrew Whitehead having a really good run this season, just not quite there with the likes of David, Matt or Alan, but certainly in the mix there in that upper midfield, faster than Willie Gliss on average throughout the season, where we see Willie Gliss 137 points, Whitehead 179, Alan Matthews 231, and then the aforementioned front runners there with 500 plus points to their name. Greg Young of the 9-9 Corsa squad currently on 92 points, so just behind the likes of Paul Millman, Andrew Brammer and Jack Hodson, as well as Steve Knight and Andy Craker, in fact. But as it stands, if Greg Young gets a strong performance such as the one that he's currently putting on, if he maintains that position, he will leapfrog ahead from a P11 in the championship all the way up onto P6. And if things go his way, he could even go higher than that. If things go his way, if the stars really align and things go badly for Willie Gliss, he will find himself getting ahead of Willie Gliss. But that would be a terrible shame. We don't want to see that. Willie Gliss currently 5th in this session, hoping to push past the likes of Alan Matthews. But Alan Matthews has been He hasn't been taking home the headlines this season. That has been done by Matt Daly and David Shelley, but it must be said that Alan Matthews has had a really quietly strong season. We know he does very well in these touring cars. We've had many a great battle involving Alan Matthews throughout our time in the AROC racing leagues, and that is why I think that he does so well. In the case of Alan Matthews here with 231 points to his name. I believe there's been a big impact for Andrew Whitehead. There has. He is in the barrier there through the final corner as well. That is not where you want to go off. That was going to be a fairly decent lap for Whitehead, I believe. That sees him now actually retiring from this session. Hopefully we'll see him in the race one action in just a few moments. Andrew was one of the drivers to actually point out just how warm it currently is in the UK. We're not going to be quite matching the temperatures seen here in Barcelona, 25 degrees, although we're not far off. Here in Liverpool, it was 23 degrees throughout the day, so very close in terms of temperature. And as I say, that could be fatiguing some of the drivers. So the likes of Whitehead will be hoping, I hope he does rejoin, but let's hope that everyone is hydrated and ready to go racing for a double header this evening. Just over 60 seconds left on the clock. Here it is then. Alan Matthews will be next to come across the line. He will get the attempt in if he does desire. No improvement on that last lap. Let's see what they can do as we head around the track further into this session. Now, Greg Young of the 939 Corsa squad heads around that final corner onto the start finish straight, puts the power down. Probably puts the power down a bit earlier. In fact, it's 151.2. No improvement there, but let's see what he can do in the final couple of attempts. This will be his final attempt in this lap. In fact, he might get another one, as that's how the time kind of shaped up this season by the looks of things. But Andrew Whitehead heads out on track now at 151.2, and into the first corner we go to have a bit of an outlap here, and that is an outlap that has not gone to plan. That is a braking failure there for Andrew Whitehead, and that pretty much knocks him out of contention. It's P3 for Whitehead in this session. I doubt he'll be able to improve because he's on his side. I think he's got some brake issues to diagnose there, so hopefully he gets those mended before the racing action starts. But a nice improvement there for Will Inglis. Will Inglis up into third position, was floundering around kind of in 6th, 5th for a little while, but has put it in a bit of a blind there to go a 151.9. No personal best sectors in that lap, interestingly. Just nice, consistent improvements. And speaking of improvements, it's Steve Knight coming up next, heading round the final corner in just a moment. Turn 13 comes up next for Steve Knight, and into turn 14 we go. Previously turn 16 this corner, of course, with the previous layout, but a much improved layout we are now running on this circuit for as long as we can. And Steve Knight crosses the line at 153.8. Nice improvement there, sees him in 5th position at the moment. Greg Young, with a bit of contact, retires from the running as the timer has hit 0. Matt Daly can't improve. It's a 150.0. Gets very close to 49, but not quite close enough. Still a remarkable lap there, 0.6 of a second faster than his nearest rival. Up next it will be Alan Matthews, who we can't see crossing the line, but it's 152.3 for Alan with just one driver to go. And it is Will Inglis. Will Inglis currently running in third. He's got 1.3 seconds to try and make up on Greg Young if that is possible. No personal best so far on this lap, but it is looking like it could be about 0.4 of a second faster if he keeps the nose clean through this final couple of corners now. That's a great lap, though, from Matt Daly. 150.0 sees him 0.6 of a second faster than his nearest rival, and ever so close to the 49s. I know I said we might not see them, but we might see those in the racing if we play our cards right, folks. Heading around that final corner, then goes Will Inglis onto the throttle once more. The blue and yellow liveried car gets ready to head across the finish line. He does not improve, but that brings an end to our qualifying session here in Barcelona. We'll see you in a few minutes to get ready for race one. Well, here we are then, ladies and gentlemen, just about to get underway on the grid here for race 1 in Barcelona. It is Matt Daly versus Greg Young down into that first corner. Let's see how it goes. And as we have 6 red lights on the gantry, and we are away for race 1 here in Spain. A good getaway for everyone involved there, it must be said. Greg Young then having a look alongside Matt Daly as we head down towards turn 1. A long run into this first braking zone, especially for these touring cars, but we do go side by side. Matt Daly takes the inside here, defending well, positioning the car perfectly, and continues on to lead the race into the next couple of corners. Will Inglis getting ahead of Andrew Whitehead, who mounts a charge to Will Inglis there, but isn't able to continue it on. Whitehead, in fact, dropping back ever so slightly and losing position to Alan Matthews. Whitehead, I should add, one of the few drivers in this session on the medium compound of tyre. That also being joined by Steve Knight. Are we say? Oh no, big off there for Greg Young. Greg Young, who was a hopeful to leapfrog a number of people in the championship, finds himself down in P6. He goes off and into the gravel at turn 4. Is able to get back out on track, but loses substantial ground in the running. That promotes Andrew Whitehead and Steve Knight up into 3rd position. And as I was saying there, Whitehead, who has some fairly substantial pace deficit in the start of this race because he's got those medium tyres, it's going to be harder. They're going to have less mechanical grip on off in the early part of the stint, but later on that should offer more grip and potentially more pace into the final stages of this race. But early on he is going to be struggling to get them warmed up, struggling to get grip out of them, and that's why I think we're seeing a difficult start. It's just not quite as difficult as it would have been as Will Inglis finds his way down the inside into turn 10. A typical move here into that turn 10 corner, and it's Will Inglis up into 4th position. Meanwhile, Greg Young runs in 6th as he tries to find a way past Steve Knight. Plenty of smoke billowing out the back of Will Inglis's car there. I suspect that actually came from the front axle as he was turning in with all of his might to get the car rotated around the tight right-hander of turn 12. We head round the right-hander of turn 14 though, as we head on to the start-finish straight. It is Matt Daly who leads this race by about 3.2 seconds now, so it's a great start to the running for Matt. He is 3 seconds clear, as I say, with plenty of purple sectors there. 1:56 to start the race. We're going to see a proper representative time though as we continue further on into this, the second lap of the race. Having a look down the field though, into the inside line and into that heavy braking zone goes Greg Young. A bit of lag issues there, apologies if that is my end, folks. All looks to be good on the stream at least, as we see Greg Young up into 5th position now, about 0.8 of a second down off Will Inglis now. Will Inglis running in P4 just behind Andrew Whitehead. Andrew Whitehead then using those mediums as best he can and running in 3rd position. This could put him in a really good state for this race actually. If he gets those tyres up to temperature now, which I expect he will within the next lap or so, he's not going to be too far off in terms of pace overall. Clearly, if they're opting for the mediums, it means that they've got some practice done in the practice session and some qualifying running potentially as well. And they found out that the soft is just not quite going to make it last for a good enough number of laps. As we head 5 or maybe 6 laps into this race, we could be seeing that medium pretty much on pace, parity with the soft, and it could offer a lot more late on into that stint. So hopefully, at least for Andrew Whitehead's sake, he is able to push on and could defend 3rd here, especially if he has Greg Young for assistance there. Greg Young keeping Will Inglis occupied as we see Will Inglis defending down the inside into turn 10. Greg Young trying to hang it around the outside. It can work here, but it doesn't work this time out as we see Greg Young up into 4th position. Greg Young eventually getting past Will Inglis there, but Will Inglis certainly putting up a good fight as we go pretty much free wide here on the run through into turn 12, or rather running through turn 12 and down into 14 in just a moment. Greg Young gets ahead of Will Inglis and are now set in sight on to Andrew Whitehead as we head on to that start-finish straight once more. There we can see Greg Young having a look that already occupies the inside line here. Gets a great run at that advantage of the slipstream there. Gets the move secure before we enter the braking zone. That's remarkable from Greg Young. There may be differences in setup there, but that won't be all that counts for that speed there. I think we are seeing a decent amount of slipstream effect here at Barcelona, especially as you run into that first corner. Greg Young then up into 3rd position, followed by Will Inglis as we run through turn 3 there. Andrew Whitehead potentially caught sleeping. I don't think that is the case, so I think that is just the tyres not able to offer the grip that he needs as we run into the 4th corner now in just a moment. That is Greg Young into P3, Will Inglis 4th, Andrew Whitehead dropping down into 5th. He'll be hoping and praying, I'm sure, that those medium tyres begin to turn on at some point, begin to offer him just that little bit more performance. If they can do that, he is still in a good position here because he's not lost much time. He's lost track position, but he can certainly claw that back as we head further into this race. Actually, the fastest car out on track at the moment is Greg Young. Greg Young, 7 seconds off the lead of this race at the moment, is setting the purple sectors. There we can see in the background Steve Knight, but Greg Young continues on as we head down towards turn 10 in just a moment with a purple sector one, as I say. That is being matched though by Matt Daly, who has purple sector 2. Alan Matthews, meanwhile, continually setting personal best, so the pace is amping up here at Catalonia, and it's looking strong throughout the pack. Here we go then, 90 minutes to go in this race, and Matt Daly currently leads by 5.5 seconds, a fairly substantial lead at this early phase of the race. He really is untouchable, as he's proven to be in this championship as well. He will be taking the championship crown in this year's running, at least the first half of this year's running, and what a drive it has been. Thoroughly deserved by Matt Daly, 5.5 seconds ahead of Alan Matthews, and as I say, a fair way away of anyone else in this championship. He will be your 2025 AROC Racing League Touring Car Championship victor, and what a drive, what a thoroughly deserving victor he is as well. Alan Matthews, meanwhile, running in P2, 5.8 seconds down on Matt Daly, but about a second ahead of Greg Young. Greg Young gonna amount to charge, I am sure, as we head further into this race. On that last lap was a 1:51.366 for Greg Young. Meanwhile, Alan Matthews running in a 52s, so he could be very much on for a fight here. Of course, it is one thing to catch up, it is another thing to overtake, but Greg Young already having a bit of a tentative look, I suspect, down the inside into turn 10. He thinks better of it, does Greg Young, and Alan Matthews continues to run in P2. Meanwhile, Will Inglis is not too far behind at all. He's also only just 1 second off the car in front. He's lapping in the 51s as well. I think that previous lap, a bit of a slow lap for Alan Matthews. Let's hope that he can claw a bit of pace back. That's also his best lap. That's everyone's best lap, as we are still early into this race. And Andrew Whitehead currently on a bit of a recovery charge, still only lapping in the 53s. I don't think the medium tyre strategy is quite working out at this point. I'm not going to say it's not going to work out, because we've certainly seen stranger things, and also late on into the race, who knows how the tyres are going to shape up. But here's how this battling is shaping up, as Greg Young has to look around the outside into that first corner. Alan Matthews is poised to defend it into the second corner entry there. As we can see, Greg Young is absolutely all over Alan Matthews at this point, but there's just nowhere for him to stick that car. This is a relatively wide track, but there's not going to be a huge pace delta here. We don't have the likes of DRS or KERS or ERS or anything like that. It is just pure racing. It's a pure car. It is this Juliet WTCR, and as a result, there is nothing that Alan Matthews has to really... There's nothing up his sleeve that Alan Matthews has to defend, but there's nothing up the sleeve for Greg Young either to try and find a way past. What this battling is doing, though, it is slowing each other down compared to Matt Daly. Matt Daly is slowly but surely just building up a nice gap. I don't even think Matt is pushing on that hard at the moment. I don't think he is really trying to eke everything out of the car. His last lap at 52. I think Matt Daly's just cruising at the moment, trying to preserve those tyres late on into the race, which he has certainly fallen foul of on a couple of the previous races that we've had, a couple of the previous rounds. The tyres have dropped off a bit unsurprising, a bit unsuspectingly in both championships, actually. And I think Matt Daly is just trying to avoid that in this race to make sure it is a gentle breeze home for the championship. He will, of course, take it as it stands, because there's nothing that David Chelly can do 10 minutes into this running to magically join into the session and close it up. So Matt Daly is our championship victor, and we will enjoy those celebrations after the end of race one, of course, at the end of the stream as well. But Matt Daly is just looking pretty comfortable out there, while these two are slowing each other down with the battling. And what it is doing is bringing Will Inglis in to play here, and Andrew Whitehead should be pretty pleased with this, because it should also bring him back into contention as well. A 151.6 last time out for Will Inglis. That closes him up and actually matches the qualifying time there, so that's impressive for Will Inglis. But he is not quite as close as Greg Young is to Alan Matthews, as Alan Matthews once again is defending from the inside. Greg Young switching it up a bit. We've seen a few moves down the inside from Greg. This time he's trying to hang it round the outside as we run through the right-handed turn 2 now, or sorry, the right-handed entry into turn 3 rather. Just look at the axle that Greg Young is having to put in there. It's not looking like it's done steering just yet, but it might not be that far off as we get closer to halfway distance in this race. But down the inside into turn 4 goes Greg Young. That's a lovely opportunistic move there. Just about saw a car's width open up for him, and Greg Young into second position. But defending here is Alan Matthews as we run down towards turn 5 in just a second. Has the inside, does Alan Matthews. We are neck and neck, side by side. Greg Young into the gravel, in fact, but somehow keeps the momentum up, keeps that nose out in front. And we're going to run into turn 7 in just a moment. Defending still as Alan Matthews is right up the inside. He does eventually relinquish the position, though, does Alan Matthews. Greg Young into second, Alan Matthews third, and right behind is Will Inglis as well. We're going to run right around the right-hander of turn 9 and heading down towards the heavy braking zone of turn 10 in just a second. Here we go, it's Greg Young against Alan Matthews, against Will Inglis. Having looked down the inside, it's Alan Matthews, but never mind. Alan Matthews has to defend against Will Inglis instead, because now Will Inglis is right into the mix of things as well. There's Andrew Whitehead, but we go back towards the front end of this fight, and it is Greg Young beginning to build up a bit of a gap. Instead, Alan Matthews is going to forget about Greg Young for now, and instead focus on Will Inglis. Will Inglis now fights for that podium as we head into that final sector. The penultimate corner is what we're navigating now, with just one corner left to go. It's Greg Young in second, Alan Matthews third, and Will Inglis in fourth as we head onto that straight. Wide goes Will Inglis, just about keeps it on the track. Keeps it out of track limits, mind, but keeps it out of the gravel most importantly. We head on to the start-finish straight now. A bit of time lost there for Will Inglis. The headlights on for Andrew Whitehead, and Will Inglis is not going to benefit from a slipstream from that far back. This kind of changes the phase of the race for Alan Matthews now. He was previously focusing on defending from Will Inglis. Now he can push on towards Greg Young instead. I should add, in all this battling, these have fallen back 10 seconds from Matt Daly. Matt Daly was looking quite comfortable out in front, but now we find them dropping back just that little bit more. Matt Daly then runs in first position, 9.5 seconds from Greg Young. And then we have 2 seconds down to Alan Matthews as well. Just behind is Will Inglis, 1.5 seconds. But this is our closest fight, the fight for P2 in this race, occupying 2/3 of the podium. What a fight it has been so far. I should add, Greg Young clearly on a bit of a charge, clearly has some pace. That is what we saw in qualifying, just the race start didn't quite go his way. But Greg Young in this race is currently setting purple sectors. We're just about to hit the halfway mark in this race. And Greg Young, yeah, with a 33.3 in sector 1, just a couple of seconds behind. Sorry, just a couple of seconds ahead of Alan Matthews and Will Inglis. So I think we're going to see this fight building up once more between Will Inglis and Alan Matthews as we head into sector 3 in just a moment. We can see Will Inglis trying his best to close up on Alan Matthews as we head down the start-finish straight there. Looks like the car's a little bit less than comfortable from the inside view, I would say. There potentially a bit of damage on the front of his car, not quite sure if that is the case, but closing up into that braking zone of turn 1 quite substantially. No personal best sectors once more. We saw that from Will in qualifying, actually. Didn't really string together a particularly strong sector, but was just putting together a very nice lap overall, and that was meaning that he was closing up to Alan Matthews. Now 6 cents per second is the gap between the two. Alan Matthews runs in third, Will Inglis down in fourth. Matt Daly meanwhile still leads this race by 10 seconds with a purple sector through the first. As we head through into turn 5 once again, both drivers missing that apex. Actually, I wonder if they are preserving the tyres at this point to make sure they can make it home for what has been a rather enjoyable race so far, it must be said. 10 minutes then is the gap. It is the time remaining in this race as we continue on. Matt Daly ahead of Greg Young, Alan Matthews, Will Inglis, Andrew Whitehead and Steve Knight is your running order for this race. go. One lap on, we can see Willingless is getting threateningly close now to Alan Matthews as we head down into that first corner. Mere meters separate them, about 50 meters to be exact, as he headed into that braking zone, but they do close up as we run through into turn one once more. Just in the background there is Andrew Whitehead pushing on. His tyres should be coming into their own now as the softs begin to drop off slowly but surely into the final phase of this race. Willingless then 15.7 seconds down off the lead. Alan Matthews 15 seconds off the lead as well. They are very close indeed, but just look at how unstable, look at how unhappy that car looked running in to the fourth corner on the track there. He was able to keep it together, was Willingless, and pushes on now into the middle sector. But Alan Matthews seemingly has control at this moment in time. The question is for how long. I should add, Matt Daly has broken into the 149s in this race. Do you want to know how much he's done it by? The absolute skin of his teeth. And we run into turn 10, a 149.999 there for Matt Daly. I almost sound German as we continue on into the final few minutes of this race in just a moment. But Matt Daly has led from lap one, controlled everything from lap one, controlled qualifying, controlled race one, and it has been a true demonstration of why he leads this championship. But leading the battle all of a sudden is Willingless. That came out of nowhere. They are side by side though as we run through turn 12. Willingless has the inside and gets a much cleaner run into the final couple of corners. There we go, Willingless up into P3, Alan Matthews P4. Apologies that I missed that, folks, but it just seems to happen all of a sudden. It's like a watch pot never boils. All of a sudden this overtake just happens out on track. Willingless up into third, 9/10 down. Oh, sorry, 9/10 ahead of Alan Matthews already. What can Alan Matthews do, though, on this lap as he now becomes the offending driver? He now is the one attacking as we run down into the first corner. Well, it's Willingless, not too stressed at the moment by Alan Matthews, I would say. Runs into turn 3 with no major challenge. Greg Young, meanwhile, running in P2. 12 seconds off the lead of this race, enjoying his run. Clearly showing his pace that he had. It was a slow start for him, but once he got clear of that, of the cars in front, he was able to leave pretty convincingly and now runs quite comfortably in P2 with no major challenges. A pretty comfortable position to be in. We'll see if anything changes for him later on into this race. But it's Willingless currently leading the battling duo that we've seen for the past few laps, ahead of Alan Matthews in P4, Andrew Whitehead in P5, and then we have Steve Knight down in P6 at the moment. Just half a second separating Alan Matthews and Willingless as we head down through to turn 10 once more. But it must be said, Willingless seemingly controlling things even down the straight, even with that slipstream that it plays into effect for Alan Matthews. Willingless has control at this point. Willingless and smoke billowing out of the tyres as we head around turn 12 into the final couple of corners. 0.8 of a second separating these two drivers into this final sector. We push on through the last lap once more and onto the start-finish straight we go. 0.7 of a second as we run onto that start-finish straight. Now, can Alan Matthews bring a charge onto this next lap? We shall see as we run down into the first corner braking zone once more. I don't know why the Autocam prefers that rear angle so much. Either way, we head into that first corner. 1 second separates them now. Nothing Alan Matthews can do just yet. Nothing seemingly Andrew Whitehead can do at the moment. I thought he might be a bit of a dark horse in this race, to be honest. I thought, you know, a bit of a slow start potentially, but those mediums should come to life. Certainly should have come to life around about now. And unfortunately, it just not worked out that way. I think he lost too much time early on in this race to really make a huge difference. He is currently lapping in the 153, so not actually matching what the soft tyre runners are able to do. I imagine we might see a difference in strategy for the second race coming up in just a moment. But Andrew Whitehead currently running in P5 with no time gained on the medium tyres. A bit of a surprise for myself, I must say. Such a high-speed circuit is Catalonia, so I thought we'd see those softs beginning to wear off, especially on the front, because the front has so much to think about in these cars. The braking, the acceleration, the G-forces of turning as well, but no challenge seemingly so far for the softs. I think they've dropped off a little bit, but nowhere near enough to warrant moving on to the medium tyres. So having a look then at this battle for P3, a crucial battle, of course, for the podium in this race. And Willingless not able to be challenged by Andrew Whitehead, sorry, by Alan Matthews just yet. And Alan Matthews looking like he was getting a little bit close through Sector 2 on this lap, but it is not yet to be, as it turns out, as we run into Sector 3 once more. It's Willingless running in P3 at the moment. Here we go then, 2.5 minutes left in this race, and Matt Denny leading by 13 seconds. A remarkable drive it has been for Matt, and truly textbook for a championship leader at this point. 542 points to his name. He will take home the championship after this race one of Catalonia. But it's remarkable just how far into championship things have gone. It's all going to come to a bit of a quick denouement in this round, but let's just think about it. We've got to the penultimate race of this championship, and it has come down to the way it could have been continued on until the very last race. It just didn't work out that way. At least that was mathematical. It was looking pretty set to be Matt Daly, but it's never quite a given. But instead, Matt Daly will be taking home that crown. Greg Young then running in P2 at 13.3 seconds. Down on Matt Daly, but showing some impressive pace in qualifying. Let's see what he can do in the reverse grid race coming up in a few minutes' time, because that should be an enjoyable one to watch. The no holds barred, pretty much. I think at this point the weight is lifted, the pressure is off. As it won't. I mean, theoretically, it'll be a championship. Of course, it's a championship round. You know, championship points can still be gained, and places can still be made. But the championship is won, decided at that point. It's a bit of a final run for this 2025 AROC Racing Leagues Touring Car Championship. Of course, plenty of changes going on throughout the AROC Racing Leagues themselves over the next coming months. So we look forward to what things are going to shape up to be into the future, of course. So we'll see how things shape up. But Matt Daly heading around that final corner with utter confidence, it must be said. Just look at the pace he carries through that last corner and onto the start-finish straight. Less than 60 seconds left on the clock for our championship leader. What a drive it has been for him throughout this season. I should add as well, what a drive it has been for the likes of Willingless, Alan Matthews and Greg Young. Greg Young having no major challenge over the past few laps, but the likes of Willingless and Alan Matthews have only just now started to enjoy some respite in this race after being so close for quite a long time in the running, as we now enter the final 30 seconds of this race. go then. Our race leader, Matt Daly, is on the penultimate lap of this race. He's heading down to turn 10 in just a moment. We're on board with Will Inglis and Alan Matthews, our two closest cars out on track, separated by just over 1 second now, which, as I say, is one of the biggest gaps that they've enjoyed throughout this race's running so far. And I'm pleased to report we will have more racing action come for you in just a few minutes, as we will have our reverse grid race when the order is changed for the race start. So it will be Steve Knight, Andrew White on that front row, then we have Alan Matthews, Will Inglis as things stand, and then Greg Young, Matt Daly, our field for race 2 in just a few moments. But first we've got to bring an end to race 1, and an important end it will be as well, as we see I think the tyres really beginning to drop off now for Will Inglis. Just look at how much rotation he was asking of the car, how much he wasn't responding to his calls as we headed into turn 10. But Matt Daly does now start the final lap of this race. A notable lap, of course, because it will be the lap which he is officially declared a championship victor in this race, as Will Inglis finds a way past Alan Matthews, which indicates there was a change of position. There wasn't, in fact, no change there. Fear not, folks, as we head on to and through the final lap of this race. Matt Daly then heads up into turn 4 in just a moment. No major challenge, as he has had for all of this race. In fact, he got a great start and has just been able to quietly cruise the car on home. So, and a well-deserved parade lap here for Matt Daly. Here we go then, running into that heavy braking zone of turn 10 for the final time in this race. We enter sector 3 with Matt Daly. A truly remarkable season it has been for Matt Daly. He has once again had a serious challenge in the shape of David Jelly, but they have both risen to the occasion. But it's Matt Daly who will come out on top in the end. Combined 1,042 points, but that'll be 1,067. Sorry, 1,067 as we head around that final corner for one last time in this for race 1. Matt Daly is a race victor and championship leader and champion for 2025's AROC Racing League Touring Car Championship, at least the first half of it as well. Matt Daly takes away the elusive crown in the 2025 running. What a drive, thoroughly deserved for Matt Daly as well. Greg Young brings the car home P2 in the end and takes home that second spot on the podium, and followed closely by Alan Matthews. It's Will Inglis who comes home in P3, rounding out that podium. Alan Matthews in P4, very close behind, actually starting to mount a charge on this final lap, I suspect. But here is our championship victor as Andrew Whitehead brings the car home as well. Matt Daly then, a thoroughly impressive season overall. He enjoys championship domination here in Barcelona as he takes away that trophy, that prize for winning the championship. Congratulations, Matt Daly. Your 2025 AROC Racing League's Touring Car Champion is Matt Daly, as we head through into the middle sector on a thoroughly deserved parade. I will watch this go in then as we get ready for race 2 in just a few minutes' time. Here we go then, ladies and gentlemen, on the grid, ready for race 2 here at Catalonia. Our final race of this championship then is Steve Knight, Andrew Whitehead on row 1, Alan Matthews winning list on row 2, followed by Greg Young and Matt Daly completing our field for this, the final race conditions of the 2025 AROC Racing League Touring Car Championship. Let's hope it's a good one as the revs rise. We have 6 red lights on the gantry and we are away for race 2 here this evening. Our reverse grid race heads down towards that first corner then. It's a good launch once again for everyone involved. Andrew Whitehead putting the pressure on Steve Knight, has that inside line here. P2 is such a great place to start from here at Catalonia, but Willing Bliss working his way through the pack is going to have a look down the inside, and into second place goes Willing Bliss. That's a great start to the running there for Willing Bliss as Andrew Whitehead finds himself off there. I don't think there was any contact with Whitehead. I think he's off of his own accord. I'm not too sure what went on either way. A terrible start to this, the final race of the championship. Andrew Whitehead is out of the running. Willing Bliss leads ahead of Alan Matthews by 1 second. Matt Daly gets a nose up into 4th position and into 3rd. Sorry, at turn 4 goes Matt Daly. Steve Knight finds himself offered into the gravel. That promotes Greg Young up to P4. But what a start for Andrew Whitehead. He gets the car back under. He does not get the car back underway. He's back in the pits. I am truly sorry, actually, that is how the final race of the championship has unfolded for Andrew Whitehead. He retires as well. Either way, a great run so far this season, up into P4 in the championship, and unfortunately that's where it finishes for Andrew Whitehead. A race to forget, an evening to forget really, to round out what has been an otherwise strong championship for him. Either way, Matt Daly has a look around the outside of Alan Matthews as we head down towards turn 10. The outside line, it can be done from here into turn 10, and Matt Daly is going to do it. He goes late on the brake, keeps that momentum up though, most crucially, and he hangs it around the outside, gets a nose out in front, and there we go, into P2 for Matt Daly, but there's contact between Alan Matthews and Matt Daly. That promotes Greg Young up into 3rd position as Alan Matthews drops back behind and into the gravel as well. Some damage on Alan Matthews' car, that might be playing into how his car's performing at the moment, but that means that Willing Bliss now leads this race ahead of Matt Daly, a few tenths ahead of Greg Young, who's just ahead of Alan Matthews, with Steve Knight a little ways behind as well, as we head on to the start-finish straight for the second lap of this race. It certainly was a chaotic start to this reverse grid race, and that is just what these reverse grids offer, as we see Andrew Whitehead leaving the pit, so I'm glad to see that he will at least carry on in the running. We saw he had issues actually with his brake pedal in qualifying. I wonder if that has arisen at the start of race 2 once again, but I'm glad to see that Andrew Whitehead is back underway in this race. Winning list then currently leads ahead of Matt Daly, just ahead of Greg Young, Alan Matthews and Steve Knight. Winning list is setting those purple seconds, but we'll see if that changes as we head through lap 2 now that Matt Daly has been somewhat released and can try and push on towards Willing Bliss. And Whitehead unfortunately leaving the session once more, and I think that brings an end to his running this evening. A terrible shame that it plays out like that, but Matt Daly running in P2, feeling the pressure in fact from Greg Young. We've seen that Greg Young has some strong pace here in Barcelona, and maybe he's utilising that now as we head further into the running here in race 2. Up through the middle of sector 2 now, heading towards turn 9 in just a moment. This would usually be our DRS zone if you're in Formula 1, but I'm pleased to report no DRS to speak of here in the AROC Racing Leagues. It's just hard racing as we head down towards turn 10 in just a moment. The slipstream going into play, and Willing Bliss leads 7 tenths of a second ahead of Matt Daly. A few tenths ahead of Matt Daly is Willing Bliss, as I say, but then there's Greg Young just behind as well. Running into turn 10 then, Matt Daly closes up on Willing Bliss as we head through that middle sector there, closes up rather substantially as well. There's 6 tenths of a second between the two cars. And yeah, Willing Bliss is going to have his work out for him now. Our championship leader, in fact, our champion of 2025 is now gunning against him as we head into that final corner. At the back end, kicking out there for Matt Daly, but he keeps control of it and heads now onto that start-finish straight once more. We are split by just a couple of tenths as we run down the start-finish straight. Matt Daly really pushing on, wants to take the double race victory, I suspect, as we run into that final corner. Heading to the outside there, darting to the outside, in fact, to set himself up nicely for the entry into turn 1. Goes Matt Daly, has the inside for turn 2, but they make big contact to Willing Bliss and Matt Daly. It got too close to comfort there. You can see that from a mile off, and Matt Daly is able to continue on, but Willing Bliss is down in a P4, make that P5 as he loses out to Steve Knight potentially. In fact, he's going to have to hang it around the outside of Steve Knight if he wants to try and get the position back, but that is Matt Daly somehow still continuing on in P2. But the reason for that is that Greg Young swoops his way past and up into the lead of this race. 1.5 seconds split Greg Young and Matt Daly. Matt Daly and Alan Matthews are split by 1 second, and then we have 4 seconds down to Steve Knight, followed by Will Inglis as well. Just a few tenths separate Will Inglis and Steve Knight as we run round into the middle sector. Steve Knight then ahead of Will Inglis by just a few tenths. We'll wait to see where Will Inglis picks his moment to find a way past, but it's Greg Young ahead of Matt Daly, ahead of Alan Matthews in a rather tumultuous start to this lap, it must be said. Defending the inside there goes Steve Knight, but Will Inglis picking his moment, I suspect, carries more momentum through as we run down towards turn 10 in just a moment. Has the inside for turn 10, in fact, does Will Inglis. Late on the brakes will be the move, and there goes Will Inglis up into P4 now. Steve Knight dropping back just that little bit more then as we continue on through into the final sector of the lap. Greg Young then 1.3 seconds ahead of Matt Daly. Matt Daly a few seconds ahead of Alan Matthews, and then we have Will Inglis currently battling against Steve Knight, but pushing on further into this race. I should add, everyone in this race opting for the soft tyre, so clearly the soft, plenty of life to make it towards the end. No one running the medium this time. It was Whitehead and Knight last time out on the mediums. Instead, everyone running that soft compound as we are just over 5 minutes into this race now. Here we go then, closing up on Greg Young as we run into sector 2 in just a moment. It is Matt Daly. Matt Daly pushing on strong on this first part of the lap. A 33.2 first sector, that is of course purple for this lap. Greg Young not quite matching him in terms of pace at the moment. Last time out, it was Greg Young controlling the pace quite comfortably, but here we see a proper charge now from Matt Daly as we run into turn 10, heading into the braking zone. Half a second split, Matt Daly and Greg Young, but we run through the final couple of corners and we should see that Matt Daly might just carry that more momentum, because it's certainly got momentum in terms of the pace overall at the moment. Middle sector purple as well as we run through that last corner and onto that start finish straight, pushing the boundaries as much as he dares goes Matt Daly. We can't see the action once again as they pass under the gantry there and down towards sector 1 in just a moment of the next lap. It's less than a 10th separation, and look at the momentum in the toe that Matt Daly has. He's going to point the nose down the inside. Late on the brakes goes Matt Daly into the lead of this race. Is he too hot into turn 1? He just about makes it. No, he doesn't. He is too hot into turn 1. Goes wide on entry, and Greg Young swoops back and takes the position. I'm pleased to report, folks, we're on for a proper battle for the race lead now, as these two are going to be trading blows over the next couple of laps. Into turn 4 we go. Matt Daly losing out over pushing on just that bit too much into turn 1, but carrying that momentum forward into turn 4 goes Matt Daly, actually taking a bit of a wider exit there to set himself up nicely for the next couple of corners. Going to follow Greg Young through, though, I suspect, as we head into the tricky braking zone of turn 5. Oh, so difficult to get right is turn 5 and turn 6, because turn 5 is an off-camber braking zone. It's so easy to lock up an inside wheel, so easy to lock up any axle, in fact, as we head up through towards the end of the middle sector in just a moment. Sausage curb to negotiate there, rather a sausage curb to avoid if possible, because it is not kind to the cars. Round at turn 9 we go. Greg Young leads this race. The question is by how long, because the slipstream is going to come into effect once more as we run down towards turn 9, and Matt Daly closing up that gap. Potentially have a look down the inside. No, just going to use that slipstream to its maximum there. Matt Daly is now only 0.3 of a second behind Greg Young as we run up through sector 3. Now this is a brilliant battle, isn't it, folks? As we head through turn 12, the braking zone that would be there for the final part of the lap is not here now through turn 13. Just let off a little bit in these front-wheel drive cars and push on down towards that final corner. 0.3 of a second separates these two, but I suspect we're going to see another challenge as we run through that final corner. Matt Daly carrying as much momentum as possible, and into the toe we go as Matt Daly tries to get a charge on for turn 1 coming up in just a moment, but Greg Young looking great on to the next lap of this race. Meanwhile, Will Inglis finding a way past Alan Matthews. Alan Matthews, I suspect, having a few issues through that final corner because he looks a little bit slow. It's Alan Matthews into P4, Will Inglis into P3. A charge for the podium in this race then, as we're approximately 10 minutes into this race. But just look at how much of a challenge Greg Young has with Matt Daly as we run up towards turn 4 in just a moment's time. An overtaking opportunity does present itself here in turn 4. Matt Daly is not going to take advantage of it, though. He might try his luck further on into the lap there as we see turn 5 in just a moment. But first, the end of turn 4, and look at how well it went for Matt Daly there. Has the outside for turn 4, he does, but he is alongside. He's putting that pressure on as we run through into the middle sector now. Greg Young leads Matt Daly. Matt Daly having a look around the outside. Greg Young moving to the right to defend there, but Matt Daly is now going to have to push on with all of his might. Up the hill we go. The pack again kicking out on Greg Young's car, but we are still being led by the red and white liveried car as we run down towards turn 10. In just a moment, the apex really upsetting the car of Greg Young there. That's going to cost him momentum, and Matt Daly can see that. He's going to capitalise upon that as we now go side by side down into turn 10 in just a moment. The late braking manoeuvre there from Matt Daly gets in the position out on track, but the inside line there keeps Greg Young back into contention there. The nose goes out in front for Greg Young. It's Greg Young back into the lead of this race. The question is for how long as we head through into sector 3. Matt Daly finds himself back into P2 in this race, and we're going to head round with the final couple of corners once more. Matt Daly leads by 0.3 of a second. Sorry, Matt Daly loses out by 0.3 of a second as we head onto the start-finish straight once more. The momentum, which has done him so well throughout various points this weekend, might just do him some favours as we head onto the start-finish straight once more. We go side by side. No toe this time, though, for Matt Daly. He's just going to set himself up nicely for the inside line here. He is going to go late onto the brakes, I am sure. He just doesn't want to go too deep into the first corner. We've seen that already in this race. Does he do it again? No, he doesn't. He's learnt from his mistakes, and it is going to be Matt Daly who takes the race lead here in Barcelona. The question is for how long, because Greg Young is very much hot on his heels as we head up towards turn 4. And there we go, the exit of turn 4, which did Matt Daly some favours earlier in this race, is helping out Greg Young here, who has a look down the outside. Has looked down the inside for turn 4, but that opens up the outside for the next corner. And got a nerves out in front, did Greg, but it wasn't going to be on this lap. It's Matt Daly who still leads by 0.2 of a second, make that 3 now as we run into the middle sector. Here we go, then we run into turn 10 once more. Matt Daly looking pretty comfortable now in the race. I say comfortable, it's 0.3 of a second separating these two drivers. Make that 0.4 perhaps as we run now into that final section. But Matt Daly leading this race as we have now crossed the halfway marker in the running of this race, at least in terms of time. We'll have a lap on top of that, of course, but now will be a good time to have a look at the championship standings after race 1. Of course, it is our champion who leads this race, obviously leading the championship as well. Matt Daly, 582 points to his name. If he hadn't been challenged by David Shelley so much throughout this run, I think it could have been even more impressive and potentially higher still. But 582 points is nothing to be to really just brush aside. That is a remarkable number of points. David Shelley runs in P2 as well, with 500 points to his name. No improvements to be found from his in attendance this evening. And we have Alan Matthews running in P3, 243. Andrew Whitehead, 189. Will Inglis, 152. Then we have Greg Young on 110, matching Steve Knight there. So Greg Young, as it stands, he's in the midst of this fantastic battle, will get ahead of Steve Knight, will break clear of that. And with Andy Craig, Jack Houghton, Andrew Brammer, Paul Millman, Nathan Birch, Guy Swarbrick and Rosie Oliver are standings for this series. But Greg Young stands at 0.7 of a second just behind Matt Daly in this race. That's the most important battle that we will be seeing so far in the running tonight. Has a look down the inside, does Greg Young as we run into turn 10. Matt Daly very much aware of his presence there. You can see him opening up the inside, giving him the opportunity to make the move if he can, but he just can't. Greg Young breaks as late as he dares, but nothing he can do without pushing on wide, potentially having an impact with Matt Daly there. So Matt Daly being a very courteous driver there. That is fine racecraft from Matt Daly, truly respectful driving. He can afford to do that because he's got so much pace to go at the moment. As he slides his way through that final corner, Greg Young dips into the gravel and we start the next lap as we now have less than 10 minutes left on the clock in this race. One and a half seconds is the gap between Matt Daly and Greg Young now. This is the biggest we've seen this gap throughout the running so far in this race. Just a reminder of our order is Matt Daly ahead of Greg Young by 1.3 seconds. Then we have Will Inglis, Alan Matthews and Steve Knight, our 5 cars remaining in this session. What another remarkable race it has been to round a strong round, I think, actually, to round out this season. The 2025 AROC Racing League's Touring Car Championship does come to an end after this evening's running, and Catalonia delivering the goods, I think, with a great couple of races. I should add, of course, why are we getting rid of this track? That is, of course, I talk about the Formula 1 calendar, of course, replacing it with a street circuit. I'm not quite sure why. We need to delve too much more into that. I think it's a shame to be getting rid of this circuit when it does offer some fantastic racing, although Matt Daly starting to control this race, much like he did in race 1, but he had to fight so much harder for it, and that's why we have these reverse grid races, just the extra challenge, the extra excitement that they do deliver in the race weekend. It really does add an extra element of intrigue to the race weekend. Then we have Will Inglis running comfortably in P3, no major challenge for him. Alan Matthews in P4, and then we have Steve Knight with another strong finish here in P5. 8 minutes left on the clock then in this race. Two seconds is the margin now that Matt Daly leads by an impressive run in this race for Greg Young, but Matt Daly just really providing a strong challenge. Although it must be said, Greg Young picking up the pace now. Now that these two at the front have stopped battling each other, they're actually offering the opportunity for each other to start setting some really strong lap times. Matt Daly hasn't quite managed that so far. I suspect he really took it out of his softs trying to close up to Greg Young early on in this race. But Greg Young, personal best Sector 1 so far at 33.2. That's a nice start to the running. Best lap overall for Greg is a 150.9. Matt Daly, though, with a 150.1. That was achieved on the last lap of the race. Getting close to those 49s once again, although we're not going to quite match 49.999. I suspect there's... Now the cars are going to be pretty quick because that fuel tank has got light and there's still some left in the tyres, but the next lap or so we're going to start to see the times drop off if the tyres do just get a little bit too worn for comfort in this race. Here we go, 1.1 seconds is the gap between Greg Young and Matt Daly as we head into the fifth corner with these two front-running drivers at the moment. Just over 5 minutes to go in this race, and they have utterly controlled this race, it must be said. No major challenge from anyone else after the first couple of laps. And here we go then. These two will be rewarded. Commiserations as well, as I say, to Andrew Whitehead. Race 2 certainly not going his way, but he has had a great season overall. We do look forward to, I imagine our drivers look forward to at least a little bit of respite. Not that they will get that for at least a week, because of course next week we'll have the finale of the Formula Alfa Championship here in Catalonia, or at Catalonia rather, and then our drivers will enjoy a little bit of a break from the traditional running as we head into our summer months before we look at what else we will be doing moving forward with the AROC Racing League. But 2025 has started off in a strong way with these championships. Haven't been blockbuster numbers, that must be fair, that is, I think, quite fair to say compared to previous years, but the racing that we have enjoyed has been very enjoyable indeed. These guys have raced with each other for a number of years now, for half a decade, and as a result they know each other very well. They know how each other drive, they are very respectful of each other, and therefore we always get great, respectful, kind, fair, and most of all enjoyable racing from everyone. So thank you to everyone's efforts for this season of the 2025 touring car running. We are going to see some more action though, because Greg Young has closed up the gap to Matt Daly as we head into turn 1, made up of 7 tenths just on that previous lap, but actually made up a few more heading into turn 1. Matt Daly on the defensive then as we push into the final few minutes of this race. We did see the threat of this strong pace from Greg Young early on in the race weekend, of course. We saw just how well he was doing in qualifying, leading that qualifying session until Matt Daly really banged in those ultimate laps there late on in the running. But Greg Young certainly a force to be reckoned with this weekend here in Spain. We are seeing that plain and clear, folks, as we run into the middle sector of the lap. The gap now stands at 1 second. The reason for that is that Matt Daly has responded to the charge from behind with a 33.1 sector 1, a truly impressive run as we head up through that middle sector. Now 9 tenths is the gap Matt Daly leads by at the moment, but both drivers looking to improve as we head through to this one of the last few laps of this season. Pushing on to the final couple of corners then. No purple sectors through that middle run as we head through onto the start finish straight. Matt Daly very nearly finding himself in the gravel. That is the risk that you do run when trying to push on as much as you dare as you run late on into the race. You perhaps don't need to put that much risk in, but I think actually, you know what, Matt Daly probably does, because there's Greg Young closing up, pushing on in to turn 1. 1 second is the margin between Matt Daly and Greg Young. That last lap for Matt was a 1:50.3, so 2 tenths off his ultimate best in this race, and Greg Young nearly matching his best of a 1:50.9 in the running as we now have 2 minutes left on the clock. Here we go, we head into turn 10 once more. Matt Daly controlling this battle with Greg Young at this point, but both drivers still setting some impressive times. Let's have a look at our other drivers in the field though. Of course, winning list still fighting for the podium here is pretty clear of Alan Matthews, who runs in P4 at this point. Then we have Steve Knight as well down in P5. Pretty consistent gaps for those drivers, must be said. Winning list 15 seconds off our two front runners. Then we have Alan Matthews 15 seconds off Will, and then we have Steve Knight 15 seconds off Alan Matthews as well. We head back to our race leaders though, as they head on to what will be the penultimate lap of this race. And Matt Daly finds himself 6 tenths of a second clear of Greg Young. This gap has not expanded to any more than 1.8 seconds over many laps at this point in the race. And now as the timer does indeed hit 0, meaning that this is the penultimate lap of the race. What a race it has been as well for the fight at the front end of this field. Here we can see a puff of smoke there as Matt Daly very nearly finds himself into the gravel running up through that middle sector. Does keep the nose clean though, which is the most important thing, of course. Here we go, and the timer has indeed hit 0, as I say. It means this is the penultimate lap of the race. And we run on through the final couple of corners and now. I should add, of course, as the time does hit 0, which means we will be starting the final lap of this race in just a moment. Greg Young, this will be his strongest result of the season so far, one of the strongest results of the season. No race wins for Greg this year. Unfortunately, that elusive race win escapes him narrowly in this race. Or I say that, not all is said and done just yet, although Matt Daly has pulled out a substantial gap as he starts this lap with a new fastest lap of the race so far, 150.066, obviously his best and the race best overall. 2.5 seconds the gap between Daly and Young, and yeah, unfortunately for Greg, no race win just yet. It was very close indeed. He's put up a valiant effort here in Barcelona, but Matt Daly will be set to bring it home, to take a double race victory in this running so far then. So we head round for one last lap here for the evening's racing. 2.2 seconds is the margin that Greg Young's lap was 151.7, whereas Matt Daly's still in the 50s. Might be seeing the tyres beginning to drop off ever so slightly now. Likes of Alan Matthews in the 54s, winning this in the 52s. Overall, they held up pretty well, much better than I predicted, which just goes to show if I predict something, do the opposite as we head into the final few moments of this race. 2.1 seconds is the gap between Daly and Young now as we run up into the middle sector of the lap. Daly then jumps on the brakes as we run into turn 10. 2.2 seconds is the margin. Just one more sector to negotiate for the yellow and red livery car. The yellow and red livery, which you have seen at the top step of the podium so many times this year. And the reason for that is some truly remarkable pace. He has controlled the racing here this evening, much as he has this championship. Had an immense challenge, of course, but that has not phased Matt Daly, and this will just be a victory parade as he rounds that final corner for one last time in the 2025 AROC Racing League Touring Car Championship. It draws to a close as Matt Daly takes the checkered flag, takes race victory. Our champion takes home first place in a race 2 as well. Greg Young follows very close behind in P2. Winningless is just moments behind as we run around that last corner. The yellow flag's being waved as we have cars celebrating out on track, I suspect, but Winningless rounds out the podium to take home P3. And here we go. Let's enjoy some victory donuts from our champion. It is Matt Daly who takes home double race victory here in Barcelona and also takes home the championship win in the 2025 AROC Racing League Touring Car Championship here in Catalonia. Well done, Matt Daly. Well done, everyone involved in this year's running. Thank you very much for making it some fantastic racing action as Alan Matthews comes home P4. We await Steve Knight to come home P5 as well. But thank you very much all for taking part in the first half of this year's running, for taking part in this season. Congratulations, Matt Daly, for the championship. Thank you very much for watching as well. We'll catch you whenever we get some more touring car action. I'm pleased to report, though, next week we're going to have some more Formula Alpha action here at Catalonia. So thank you very much for watching this evening, and goodbye.